I wanna know if you're like me. Are you here for the Thanksgiving turkey or are you here for the sides? Because I'm here for the sides. Absolutely one of our favorite sides of all time is butternut squash risotto, and I'm telling you, it will change your Thanksgiving menu. To start off this recipe, we are going to take a butternut squash and cube it up into bite-sized pieces. You do wanna peel it. We're gonna cut up as much as I feel like we need. Now we're going to coat these in some olive oil and some salt and pepper and roast them in the oven. I like to get mine pretty done because I feel like if it gets a little bit of a char on it, it tastes even better. So my oven is currently preheated to 425 and these are gonna roast for about 20 to 25 minutes. I just like to watch them and make sure that they get good color on them though. All of my ingredients are already right here. You guys saw we roasted that butternut squash earlier. We've got some Asiago cheese. This is bone broth. You can use chicken broth if you prefer, but I have it hot. And trust me, you want it to be hot. It's gonna make it so much easier. It's gonna cook so much faster. We've got risotto here, and you want some white wine, and then we're gonna also start with a little bit of butter here in our pan. Oh, and it helps when you turn your stove on. All right, so let's get that nice and melted. And now I probably have around a cup left of risotto here in this container. We're gonna be using all of it. Okay, so we want to toast this risotto. That's probably a little over a cup. Okay, so you're gonna toast this until you start to see just a little bit of color. All right, I'm gonna attempt to show you guys what I'm talking about. Do you see, it's not focusing on it, but there's one that's starting to get a little bit of color there. Oh, there's several. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. You're starting to get a nice toasted color on these. Okay, now that it's starting to toast, I did turn my heat down to medium. I had it on high. We don't wanna burn the butter. I'm gonna go ahead and deglaze the pan with some white wine. Make sure you cook all of that out. It doesn't take long to do that at all. Oh, we got jumping risotto here. So like I said, you want this broth to be hot. And the reason is if it's cold, every single time you go to pour this in, it's going to have to reheat itself up. So I usually will add about a 1/4 cup at a time. We're gonna heat that up, let it cook down. My heat is actually still a little bit too high right now, but you're gonna add another 1/4 cup in just a minute. And basically each time it's going to continue to cook down and it's gonna cook that risotto. Once the liquid has cooked into the pasta, once you really don't see much of that liquid anymore, that's when you're gonna start to add another 1/4 cup. You're just repeating this process until the risotto is completely cooked. So this is where we are. We have used all of the bone broth at this point. It does need a little bit longer, but the flavor's on point. So definitely switching to water. Per like 1 cup of risotto, we go with about 2.5 cups of broth and then swap over. All right, so we are at a really good consistency here. I am going to add in a little bit of this Asiago blend cheese. You can use whatever kind of cheese you like, but I do feel like a Parmesan or an Asiago is perfect for this. And we're also gonna add in the butternut squash that we roasted, however much you want. Let's start with about that and see what it looks like. Now, obviously, if you're not a fan of butternut squash, you could just do risotto, or like a mushroom risotto even, but the butternut squash is so good, you guys. This is an all-time favorite recipe. Okay, you know you wanna try this one. I mean, how could you not? Truly one of our favorite sides of all time. Like, it's one of these things where you know it's a special occasion if I'm making butternut squash risotto. It's so good. The butternut squash has a slight hint of sweetness, but then you tie it in with the saltiness of the Parmesan and the Asiago cheese and the bone broth, and it's the perfect balance. It's so good though. It's so good. It's for sure a favorite. Admittedly, I am most excited about this recipe. This is a beer, cheese, bacon stuffing, and I love all of the ingredients. It sounds delicious. For this recipe, we are going to need 1 stalk of celery. This is chopped. It's gonna roughly be about 1/4 of a cup. You would need 1/4 cup of onion as well if you are adding that. We're gonna need 1/4 cup of beer, just use whichever kind you want. 5 cups of French bread. This is dried out overnight and cubed. About 5 slices of bacon. I've already pre-cooked our bacon because that just makes things really easy. We need about 1/2 cup of shredded mild cheese. About 1/2 tablespoon of thyme and about 1 teaspoon of sage. We need 1 egg, 1 teaspoon of Worcestershire, 1 cup of low sodium broth. We're using bone broth. For this recipe, I am melting my butter over medium heat. I'm using about 5 to 6 tablespoons of butter here. And we're gonna add in that celery. Here's where you would also add in the onions. We are going to season this with salt and pepper to taste, cooking this for about 6 to 8 minutes until the vegetables are tender. All right, now that those vegetables are looking perfect, we are gonna add the beer to the skillet. 1/4 cup of beer here, bring that to a simmer, cook it for about 2 to 4 minutes, and the liquid is gonna reduce by half. Once that happens, we do wanna remove our skillet from the heat. We're taking 5 cups, roughly 5 cups of that French bread. I am putting that into a bowl and we are gonna add half of our bacon. So we're gonna add about 2.5 slices or so, maybe 3 slices of bacon because we love bacon in this house, so we're not gonna skimp on the bacon. I'm also putting in about 1/4 cup of the cheddar cheese and then toss in the thyme and sage and just toss all of that together. Our beer buttery vegetables are ready to go. We're gonna toss these in with the bread mixture and just make sure everything is nice and combined. I do have a baking dish here. I'm using a round one just because that is what we have left, but it's roughly an 8-inch dish. We are going to spray that and then smooth out our mixture into this dish. And then I'm gonna add the remaining bacon and cheese to the top of this. We do wanna cover it with aluminum foil. We're gonna cook it for 40 minutes and then remove the foil and cook for another 20 to 30 minutes. All right, friends, here is the beer cheese, bacon, stuffing casserole. We're gonna try this one and let you know what we think. Like a different kind of stuffing, not traditional.
That's the best one. The cheese comes in at the end of the bite.
Yeah, this has really good flavor. And that mild cheese comes through in this, so good. One of my favorite sides to have is carrots. And I love these carrots where you can get all different colors. I think these are so pretty. So we are going to roast these, but we're also gonna make a brown butter sauce to go on the top. I'm telling you, it is so delicious. You want to make this recipe. My oven is currently preheated to 400 degrees. I'm gonna take all of these carrots and put them in a bowl here. I've got some olive oil. We're gonna take some of that and drizzle olive oil on these. We've got some oregano here that we're putting on the carrots. And then I'm gonna take some salt. I'm gonna get some salt on these too, probably a total of 1/2 teaspoon. And now we're just gonna take a couple of minutes and toss these really, really well. I've got my baking sheet lined with parchment paper and we're just gonna take our carrots, put them on the baking sheet. Okay, these are going in my 400 degree preheated oven for about 20 minutes. We're gonna make the brown butter sauce that's gonna go over the carrots. To do this, I'm literally just taking butter and I'm gonna cook it until you start to see some brown bits at the bottom of the pan. So it's gonna be a little bit bubbly like this. And then at some point, after a couple minutes, you'll start to see little brown flecks in it. And that is exactly what you're looking for. And just for reference, I'm currently on about medium heat. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see this very well. I'm gonna do my best to show you, but do you see the little brown flecks in here? Oh, they're really starting to form back there. That is what you're looking for. When you get to this point, you know that you're about to pull this off. If you can find sage, just throw a couple leaves of sage in here while you're cooking your brown butter sauce. And then when you're done cooking, take this, you don't even have to keep the sage, you can just toss it. I'm gonna turn the heat off. Transfer the brown butter sauce to this little glass dish that we have right here, just so that we make sure it doesn't overcook. So it's just gonna sit to the side until our carrots are done. These carrots are just so good. I'm telling you, a brown butter sauce just elevates vegetables and makes them so much better. Just so much better. Grab yourself some sage or some thyme or something like that while you're out. You're gonna add those herbs, that flavor into the brown butter sauce, and it's just so good. We are going to make honey butter skillet corn. This entire corn recipe is gonna be made over on the stovetop. We don't have any prep work at all, so I'm just gonna move straight over there. 2 tablespoons of butter here in this skillet. I'm gonna turn my heat on to like a medium high and start to get this melted. Okay, I'm gonna add about 2 tablespoons of honey to this, and we're gonna melt that together. Now I'm gonna use smaller bags of corn, so I'm adding about 20 ounces or so of corn. Let this cook for about 5 to 8 minutes. We're gonna stir it occasionally. I wanna make sure that that corn gets that really good butter and honey flavor to it. This has been cooking for about 7-8 minutes or so. To take 2 ounces of cream cheese and cube it up a little bit and start to combine this with the cream cheese. So that's actually a little more than 2 ounces, but the package was almost gone, so we might as well use it. Start to combine this and get that cream cheese melted. Add in about a half teaspoon or so of salt and pepper. All right, we gotta give this a try, obviously. That's where it's at right there. Here is the honey butter skillet corn. It is so good. We are going to make broccoli casserole. This is a family favorite. My mom has been making this for so long, but you know I had to put a little bit of an extra spin on it. I've adjusted the recipe ever so slightly, so stay tuned, stay with me. I have this big bag here of broccoli. We do want to go ahead and chop this and make it into smaller pieces. As I chop, I'm just gonna add here to this bowl that I have. And it doesn't have to be perfect, it doesn't have to look great. And I'm looking for, I don't know, 2 to 3 cups or so. To this broccoli that I've cut up, we're gonna add 1 can of cream of mushroom soup, about a half cup of mayonnaise. I use the Duke's mayo, but it's up to you, whatever you wanna use. And I'm not measuring this because like I said, this is all eyeball for us at this point. I'm gonna start mixing that together a little bit. I'm gonna add a little bit of salt and pepper to this. You don't need much because you're gonna get salt from something else that's coming up. About a teaspoon or so. And probably about a teaspoon or so of pepper. I have some sharp cheddar cheese here. We're gonna add this, about a cup. I have a 9x13 pan here. I'm gonna spray this with some olive oil spray. My oven is currently preheated to 350 degrees. This is going to go in the oven. It'll take about 30 minutes or so, but before we put this in there, we gotta add the special stuff that goes on the top. My mom always adds Ritz crackers to the top of her broccoli casserole. I am gonna add some of those. My favorite thing to add is Cheez-Its. You can do all Cheez-Its, you can do all Ritz crackers, or you can do a combination like I'm gonna do. So I'm taking, this is 16 to 20 Ritz crackers. We're gonna break those up, and these are just going to go over the top. Now we're gonna take some Cheez-Its and break those up and put those on the top too, just a handful or so, or 3. I have a few tablespoons of melted butter here in this measuring cup. We're just gonna take the melted butter and spoon it over the top of this. All right, this is going in the oven for about 30 minutes. All right, friends, here's the broccoli casserole. If you haven't tried smashed potatoes, it's just basically a couple of extra little steps, and it takes red potatoes, or really any type of potato, to the next level. You have to try these. I'm using a pretty large pot, but you would just want to use a size pot that's going to just slightly cover however many potatoes you're going to be boiling. For our family, I've gone with 8 of these potatoes. These are going to boil for in between 20 and 25 minutes, and then we'll move along to the next step. The potatoes are done boiling. I'm gonna transfer them to this parchment lined baking sheet. I'm going to take my potato masher. I want these to be about a ½ an inch thick or so we're going to smash these down. Now that these are smashed, they're gonna get drizzled with olive oil. So each one is gonna get olive oil. Oh my gosh, this is gonna be so good. I'm also gonna add salt to each one. Again, I like to sprinkle the salt from up high, especially when doing something like this, to make sure that it doesn't kind of clump up in one area. I'm also gonna add some garlic powder and just kind of dusting over the top of each one of these with the garlic powder. This part is not typical of smashed potatoes, but we're going to put a little bit of freshly grated Parmesan cheese onto the top. It really doesn't need much. This is just gonna add a touch of flavor to each one. These are going in the 425-degree preheated oven for about 20 to 25 minutes until you see nice and crispy edges. These cinnamon apples are so delicious, and they cook in the crock pot, so you don't even have to think about them. The first thing that I need to do is get all of these apples sliced, peeled, cored, all of that stuff. And I am using about 6 apples. It's probably around 2 pounds, maybe a little less than 2 pounds. So the recipe actually calls for 3 to 4 pounds of apples. So I'm gonna be cutting the entire thing in half. I've got 1 tablespoon of cornstarch, 1/8 cup of brown sugar, 1/8 cup of plain white sugar, a ½ teaspoon of cinnamon, 2 tablespoons of melted butter, 1 teaspoon of lemon juice, and a ½ teaspoon of vanilla extract. I've got my sliced apples here in my crock pot insert. I'm going to take the cornstarch and I'm gonna mix that with the apples really well. Next, I'm going to pour in my brown sugar, and cinnamon, and then also give that a stir to mix it well. Those are nice and coated. Now I'm gonna add in the rest of my ingredients. I'm adding in the butter, lemon juice, and vanilla. I'm gonna stir and incorporate that as well. Already, these are smelling so good. I'm gonna cook this on high for 2 hours. That's pretty good. I'm gonna have to take some of this up to my husband, who's working upstairs in his office. We are going to make scalloped potatoes in the Instant Pot, and I love how easy this is. The first thing that I'm doing for this scalloped potato recipe is using my cheese grater, and we're gonna dice up these potatoes. I'm putting them all into my Instant Pot, and I'm adding about 1 cup of chicken broth. You could also use vegetable broth here. I'm also adding a teaspoon of salt and some pepper to taste, but this would be another great place to add things like garlic powder, onion powder, and any other type of spices that you like. We're gonna give these a stir and put on the lid. The lid is going to be set to sealing, and we are gonna cook these for 1 minute. Now keep in mind that even though you're cooking it for only 1 minute, it does take about 10 minutes for that pot to come up to pressure. I'm gonna take the potatoes out of the Instant Pot, and we are actually gonna transfer these to the oven just for a couple of minutes. So I'm turning the broiler on. It doesn't take any time at all to do that. I'm gonna turn on the Instant Pot to saute, and I'm gonna add my cheddar cheese and my heavy cream, and I'm just gonna stir that together until it forms a nice sauce. We can take that out once the sauce is made and then pour that all over the potatoes in the baking dish. All right, so all I need to do now is take the scalloped potato dish and put it over into the oven where my broiler is preheated and just let this melt and just get a nice brown color on the top of it. Look at those little parts where the cheese has just browned up. It looks so good. Everything looks like it is set together nicely. Here are our scalloped potatoes. They look delicious. We are making roasted butternut squash kale salad with chickpeas. It's supposed to also be with cranberries. I actually don't love cranberries, so I might leave that out. We'll see how it goes. Our butternut squash is cut and ready to go. We're gonna drizzle this with a little bit of olive oil, some salt and pepper, put this in the oven for about 15 minutes, then we're gonna add to it. I have a can of chickpeas or garbanzo beans and drain and rinse these. I'm drizzling our chickpeas with a little bit of olive oil. Add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of paprika. Maybe a little more. I'll be a little more careful with the cayenne. Again, about 1/4, maybe even an 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne. That's probably enough. Add about an 1/8 teaspoon of cumin. And then just a little bit of pepper. Let's mix this all together and then we're gonna get started on the kale. I have a salad spinner here. Put some of the kale into this, just a few cups. Take some olive oil and just drizzle the kale with some olive oil and then add some salt. We're going to mix in that olive oil by kind of massaging the kale, and that's gonna darken it in color just a little bit and kind of soften it up. We're gonna make up our dressing that's gonna go on this salad. We need about 2 tablespoons of olive oil, about 2 tablespoons of orange juice, 2 teaspoons of apple cider vinegar, and some salt and pepper. Whisk this together and set it to the side, and then right before we actually dress the salad, we'll whisk it again. Add the chickpeas to the pan here and roast those as well for about 15 minutes. I normally like to let my butternut squash roast just a little bit longer than this, but everybody is saying they're hungry, so I'm gonna just go ahead and move on with what we have. Oh, the cranberries really would be so pretty on this. Add a little bit of this dressing here. I'm just gonna do a little bit of a drizzle, and then when I serve on each plate, we'll add a drizzle to each. All right, there you have it. Our little side salad. I love all the colors in this, so pretty. Like I said, that red would be really gorgeous in here too, adding more color. But it's like autumn in a bowl. So pretty. We are going to make up a Brussels sprouts slaw. It's very, very good. You let it marinate for a little bit so it kind of breaks down the Brussels sprouts a little bit. So delicious. First, we need to shave up some Brussels sprouts. I'm not really counting. I'm just looking for the amount that's gonna work for our family. So I think it's probably gonna be around 10 to 12 Brussels sprouts. Also, you can just put your Brussels sprouts into a food processor and it will shave them up for you. We need a 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. So I'm gonna use my cheese grater and shred this up. I'm gonna add the cheese to the Brussels sprouts. We'll end up mixing all of this together. We're gonna make up our dressing. I have some lemon juice here. We're gonna be adding into this bowl about 2.5 tablespoons of this lemon juice, 1 tablespoon of honey. Let's add in about a teaspoon of Dijon mustard, about 2 garlic cloves, minced, 1/4 cup of olive oil, and then we just add some salt and pepper to taste. All right, now we're gonna take that dressing and pour it all over the salad, and we'll toss it together. So you can let them sit in your refrigerator, like a couple hours before you're gonna serve it. We just need about 30 minutes or so for these Brussels sprouts to marinate in this dressing. I did decide to just go ahead and dry toast up some almonds, so I'm just putting them in a dry frying pan, and it's just about a 1/2 cup of these sliced almonds, and we're just gonna let them cook in here until they have this little bit of a toasted color. This is what we're looking for right here. You start to see that. Put your almonds into your little salad here and just toss them, and then it's ready to serve. We are going to make scalloped sweet potatoes. Y'all, these smell amazing. I've already peeled this sweet potato. We're gonna use the slicer portion of my cheese grater, and we're going to slice this up. Now, I'm not going to attempt to make this incredibly beautiful or anything. You can absolutely just throw your sweet potatoes in there and then cover them with your sauce. But I am going to slightly attempt to kind of stand them and make rows. So I attempted kind of rows, you can see them a little bit. Starting with 1/3 cup of maple syrup here. I'm adding 1/3 cup of butter. We're gonna pop this into the microwave and melt it. We are going to add about a 1/2 teaspoon of dried rosemary, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and about a 1/4 teaspoon of pepper. Stir all of this together. So I'm just gonna take my spoon and kind of drizzle rather than pour so that I try and do my very best to coat all of the sweet potatoes with this. So my oven is currently preheating to 425 degrees. We're gonna put foil over this, and this is going to bake in the oven for about 30 minutes. You can bake it probably up to 35, just depending on the tenderness that you desire for your sweet potatoes. The recipe does not call for this, but I'm gonna put these under the broiler really quick and just let that top layer get a little bit of crispiness to it. All right, I went ahead and tasted a little piece so I could give you my impression. Love the rosemary flavor that's in here. I still do agree it could take less butter. So you could probably make half of the actual like dressing portion, the maple syrup portion that the recipe called for, but very good option if you just want to do something different than sweet potato casserole. Friends, I am so thankful for each and every one of you and the opportunity to be able to do this. If you need more inspiration, check out the video above. I hope that you have a wonderful week and a great Thanksgiving.